My name is Ami Yamamoto. Ami is made up of two characters, A and Mi, and the A, my Chinese character for it means like Japanese apricot, and Mi means beautiful. And there's like a Chinese like tale or something about how like there's a doctor in like this poor town, and he helped all the townspeople out like with no pay and stuff, and then the townspeople one day to thank him planted like a apricot tree in his backyard or something. My dad was a doctor in Japan, but he saw a lot of he was a gastroenterologist, and he saw a lot of patients with pancreatic cancer, and pancreatic cancer is like really hard to find and really hard to cure. So he wanted to do research to find a cure for pancreatic cancer, and it's like the U.S. is more set up for doing research that you want to do, kind of. So he was asked if he wanted to come as a postdoc here. I first moved to Alabama, actually, when I was 5. So I've been in Minnesota for 8 or 9 years now, but I lived in Alabama for 7 years. So so he was at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, doing some research on pancreatic cancer. So that's why our entire family moved.
Wow.
So my immediate family would include my mom, my dad, my little brother, who's 4 years younger than me, and my dog, Hannah. She's 11 now. She's a Labrador Retriever. And then I would include, like, everyone in my extended family as, like, family, but not, like, immediate family, if that makes sense. Pretty typical of a Japanese family, or a Japanese couple of my parents' generation. My dad was a doctor in Japan. Now he's a researcher, and my mom is and was a stay-at-home mom. She used to work before she got married to my dad, but it was pretty typical of, like, people of my parents' generation to, like, for women to stop working after they got married and be a stay-at-home mom and a stay-at-home wife. Yeah, there are a lot of gender roles. My dad's side, especially, they're a really conservative, traditional Japanese family. It's conservative is a little different from in Japan to the U.S., I think, but they follow like pretty traditional like gender roles and stuff. So my grandpa on my dad's side doesn't like it when my dad or my little brother tries to cook or like tries to be in the kitchen. He thinks that it's like a woman's job. And also, so in Japan, the woman marries into the male's family. Like, it goes by, like, last name, I guess. So when my mom married my dad, she took the Yamamoto name, which is what was my dad's family's name. And then she marries into my dad's family. They kind of still treat my mom as a guest, sort of. Like, which sounds nice, but it's actually not. So a lot of times what ends up happening is that, like, if I want to help my grandma, or if we want to help my grandma, I'm the only one that can do it, because they won't let my dad or my brother help, and they kind of won't let my mom help either unless she, like, really pushes for it. So, like, to, like, appease my grandpa, like, I am, like, the only, like, good person to help my grandma. I feel like my dad's family is a pretty extreme version of what gender roles are. They're pretty traditional. Like, they really care about, like, how my brother's educated, but they didn't really ask me what I was doing for, like, a really long time, because, you know, like, yeah, a woman's happiness is, like, supposedly to, like, get married and have children and stuff, so... the terminology itself is super sexist, but, so, you know, in Japanese, the term for men who work in companies is sarariman, like salarymen, and the term for women who work in corporate is oeru, which is an abbreviation for office ladies, and basically, I mean, like, they're thought of as, like, hierarchy-wise, like, below, like, the men and stuff, but I don't know, like, whenever it's kind of weird because, like, if you ask Japanese people, like, oh, what do you do for a living? They'll say, like, sarariman or, like, oeru, and they won't say what company they work for or, like, what they do there. So I kind of don't know. Like, I'm pretty sure she works for something related to airlines. She's said that to me. Okay. But she was never even told me, like, what company it was or, like, because it's not important to them. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, here, if you ask someone, like, oh, where do you work? Or, like, what do you do? They'll tell you, like, the company, and they'll be like, oh, we do this type of stuff. And they're pretty, like, excited a lot of times to tell you what it is they do. But in Japan, they'll just say, like, oh, I work for a company. With my immediate family, growing up, we had a Japanese-only rule in our house. So, it's because they knew that my brother and I would only speak English in schools and stuff, and primarily English with friends. So they knew that if they didn't enforce that rule, then we would probably lose our Japanese. And so, yeah, we only speak in Japanese, like, to and from my parents. That was pretty much the only exposure I had to Japanese until I came to college. Like, family and supplementary school were, like, really pretty much the only interactions in Japanese I had. So now I actually have quite a bit of Japanese friends and Japanese speaking friends. So, yeah, and I was in a Japanese student group for my entirety of my undergrad. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. One is gambatte. Like, people in, like, if I watch movies or animes or something, they translate it as good luck. But gambatte has a connotation that it's you that's exerting the energy. It's not about luck. It's like, it's kind of like more like do well or like good or like work hard or something. But I like it because it's kind of like, it's like the same context as saying good luck, but it's like your effort based rather than it being up to luck. So I think that's, yeah. And then also there's like all these like politeness phrases, like, お世話になります, which means like, please look after me. Mm-hmm. But you say that when you like first meet someone and like, maybe they're like a person that's supposed to teach, like supposed to be your mentor at work, or maybe you'll say that to your child's teacher or something, or maybe you'll say that to your if your parents are like older or something, like maybe you'll say that to like their neighbor or something to like look after them kind of. In Japanese, there's like a lot of like, yeah, there's like a lot of formality things, like different, there's like a bunch of different conjugations for levels of respect and stuff. When I lived in the South, like kids would say yes sir, yes ma'am to their parents, which I think is really uncommon here in Minnesota. It was like a similar thing where like if you meet an adult on, you know, like randomly, you would say yes sir, yes ma'am. But it's a little different, I think, because in Japan, most parents and children don't have the relationship where they use formal language, you know? You would use casual because you're family. But it's kind of interesting that in some parts of the U.S., like, it's even more formal than in Japan. You know, in Minnesota, most people don't do that, but... So, until 10th grade, my sophomore year of high school, I was like, the two things I don't want to be are a doctor and a researcher, because that's what my dad was, and I was like, I'm not going to follow my dad's footsteps. I don't want to do that. But then, the more I learned, the more I progressed through education, I was like, crap, this is what I want to do. I think what probably would have happened is that, so in Japan, med school is right after high school, so med school is like college, but it's 6 years, so it's kind of like a combined undergrad and professional thing. So that's what my dad did too. So that probably is what I would have done, so I think I'm heading towards like the same general direction. When it's like Japanese student group related people hanging out, and like, some people are Japanese, or they're obviously Japanese speaking, but some people aren't. Some Japanese people will opt to only speak in Japanese with each other, and I really hate that, because even if, like, someone is, like, more I don't know, like, I think that this is the United States, we speak English, and, like, it's okay if it's just, you know, like, Japanese-speaking people speaking Japanese, but I think it's, like, bad to, like, exclude someone, whether it's on purpose or by accident. Like, I'm really, like, conscious about, like, speaking English if there's even, like, one non-Japanese speaker. But a lot of people don't really notice that because they're, like, kind of, like, in their group, and, you know, they don't really notice, I think. And also, yeah, I kind of noticed that, like, the Japanese exchange students, like, really only hang out with each other. Yeah, I think most of the conflict comes from the fact, for me, like, the identity crisis thing, like, comes from the fact that I look Japanese, and Japanese people expect me to act Japanese, but I'm not. I don't really act Japanese. I do, and, like, Japanese culture influences me, but by and large, I act pretty American, so they're, like, really caught off guard when I don't act Japanese. So we always take our shoes off, when we go into our house. So New Year's is a big family holiday. It's kind of like equivalent to Thanksgiving. Like, everyone, it's like an even bigger Thanksgiving. Like, everyone in the family, like, sees each other, and, like, you're all in one house and stuff. All of your extended family, not just, like, the ones you see, but, like, everyone, even the ones you hate. But we obviously can't really do that because we're, like, over here. So, but it's still kind of like a family holiday. If someone tries to, like, imitate Japanese culture, it doesn't offend me unless it's done in a very ignorant way. Like, there's a difference between someone that's educated trying to adopt the culture, or, like, trying to incorporate it into their own lives, and someone mocking it, or someone being, like, uneducated and ignorant and only looking at, like, very, like a singular aspect of Japanese culture, which, as you may know, like, happens to be a lot of times, like, what they see in animes, because, like, to Japanese people, animes are, like, you know, like, a part of our culture, but obviously it's not the only way, like, it's not, like, the only thing we do. I consider myself to be spiritual but not religious. I don't like to consider myself religious, mainly because my spirituality doesn't fit in with any of, like, the predefined religions. Mainly because if I say I'm religious, people assume that it's, like, one singular religion, and it's just easier to explain if I say that, oh, like, I'm spiritual but not religious, and I'm influenced by these, like, thoughts, or, you know, stuff. So it's mainly just, like, how it's phrased and, like, what's easiest to explain, sort of thing. But in Japan, religion it's not mutually exclusive. So, people are Shinto, and people are Buddhist, and people are Christian, like, at the same time, because, you know, it's not mutually exclusive.